Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're going to be talking about the fourth and final subclass from the Auroboros book created by Chris Metzen and his company Warchief Gaming. Today we're talking about the Souleater Warlock.
Yes.
And on top of that we have a new Pact, which is the Pact of the Ink, which comes along with two Eldritch Invocations, which we will quickly cover as well because we believe those will tie really well into the subclass and it could be beneficial. So, if you're new to the channel or subclass series, we're going to go through all the abilities. We're going to rate it based on its roleplay value, combat value, overall class synergy, based on how the abilities gained in the subclass improve on the base class abilities. Also, we have our D&D Beyond Players Bundle. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in that. And then lastly, thank you to our sponsors, Hit Point Press. You have to check out their newest Fable Makers animated cards. It lets you play with fortune telling and omens and introducing them into your campaigns and stories. Ways to intrigue the mystical side of your campaign. So make sure you check that out. Help support us. Click that link down below. And Alex, let's jump straight into it. What do we get?
We're getting a new Pact. It's Pact of the Ink with our mystical warlock tattoos. Once per long rest, you can grab one of your known spells onto your skin. Using the magical ink and needle, these skin etchings glow with a faint, sickly green light. You're a warlock after all. Once a spell is scribed, you are free to cast it without consuming a spell slot as a bonus action. But the tattoo is consumed. You cannot cast another spell in the same round that you use this bonus action. So
that's just typical casting rules. You could still use Eldritch Blast or something.
Yes.
Cantrip, only one cantrip and one spell on a turn.
Yes.
Don't break the rules.
No. No. Scribing yourself with a tattoo takes 30 minutes. You can only have one spell scribed on your skin at a time. So you can't start like backlogging them suckers and then one day just be like,
throw them out for free.
Yeah, no. We also, with this, have two Eldritch Invocations that both require you to be Pact of the Ink.
There you go.
First of these is Hellion of the Souleater. Hellish Rebuke is added to your spell list.
Free spell!
Added to the spell list. Once per long rest, you can cast Hellish Rebuke without consuming a spell slot.
Yay.
Yay. Still free, though. And your other one is Soul Feast, which does require a 12th level warlock that tells you what you're going to do. Okay.
Brace yourself.
You are able to increase your exhaustion level by 3.
Ouchie.
Sounds great, right?
Yeah, sounds real good.
In order to regain all spent spell slots.
You have my attention.
If that's not the most warlock thing you can do, I don't know what is. And I love every ounce of it.
Absolutely.
Because it's all about, like, there's a cost, there's a penalty. Yes, I said penalty intentionally. There's a penalty for things. But, that's just so juicy warlock. I love it. I don't care what the rest of it does. I like it. just because it's so very warlock.
And because of the mention of the exhaustion on there, this will be a very important mechanic.
A refresher on the levels of exhaustion.
A quick refresh on exhaustion.
That's right.
At level 1 of exhaustion, you have disadvantage on ability checks. Okay.
Combat, you don't give a fart. Next.
2 levels of exhaustion, your speed is halved. You're moving slow.
Okay.
3 levels of exhaustion, disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws.
So be aware.
Eldritch Blast gonna fall off pretty quick.
Yeah, again, there are penalties for getting all your spell slots back.
4 levels of exhaustion, hit point maximum halved.
Yeah, you don't want that.
That gets a little sketchy because you're a warlock anyways.
Yep.
Level 5, speed reduced to 0. And level 6, death.
You did.
So, keep those in mind.
So, for some reason, you already have 1 level of exhaustion. I would not recommend taking the 3 to get the spell slots back.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt.
There's a huge jump from 2 to 3, and then 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to, like, after you go, the first one's not awful. It only affects your RP. So if you're worried about your combat efficiency, it's not really affecting your combat. And then you're like, oh, half my speed. Okay, that sucks. But I can still function. It just sucks. Then start feeling that stuff in a hurry. So
yes. So keep those in mind because we're going to play with exhaustion here in a minute.
We are. Also, we gave Jameson hope, and then we're going to take the rug out from underneath him. Because additionally, they get More spells added to the spell list. Yay. But added to the spell list.
Yeah.
Command, Magic Mouth, Bestow Curse, Stinking Cloud, Evar's Black Tentacles, Confusion, Dominate Person, and Cloud Kill.
Also at level 1, we have Terrifying Aura. You may emanate an air of psychic terror in a 15-foot radius. When a hostile creature comes within range of your aura, they must make a wisdom saving throw equal to your spellcasting DC. Each creature can only be affected by this ability once every 10 minutes, and the aura lasts for 1 minute.
So it's not happening more than once in a combat, because you're not having a combat going longer than 10 minutes.
Right.
Not mechanically, anyway.
The effect of the aura only lasting 1 minute is kind of irrelevant because you can just put it up for free anyways. So it's more just of a semantic thing as to consciously having it up or not.
Yes.
And you have 1 of 8 effects that can possibly happen when they enter this aura.
That's right.
The first option is character loses attention as their mind seems to skip for a moment, causing their next attack to have disadvantage. Your second option is a crippling dread washes over the creature and they are struck speechless for their next action. For 3, you have creature is terrified at the mere sight of you. They must use their movement to move as far away from you as possible on their next turn. And 4 is the creature feels nauseous, movement speed reduced to 0 until the end of its next turn.
That sounds familiar.
Or end of its turn. 5 is the creature is overcome with rage and must use their next attack on the nearest creature. 6, horrific thoughts flood the target's mind. They have a disadvantage on saving throws until the end of their next turn. 7, the creature cowers in fear, immediately dropping their weapon. 8, the creature is stunned until the start of its next turn. So some defensive options for sure on there. Some of them
some CC stuff
might not go the way you're hoping, but sometimes it's going to be real clutch.
That's right. Also still at level 1, because we're a Warlock. We like level 1. Hallucinatory Magic. When you cast a spell that targets only one creature, you can choose to cast a spell subtly into the mind of your target, causing the casting of the spell and its effects to only be visible to the target. If the spell deals damage, it deals an additional 1d4 psychic damage. Do this number of times per long rest equal to your charisma modifier.
There you go.
So, again, the number one thing that's going to come up to is helping you get around counter spells.
Right.
And I think there's a little bit of RP flavor involved with that too. You'd be like, if you look somebody dead in the eyes and cast a spell on them, just be like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that?
Yes. Definitely.
Yeah.
And then, where things get really crazy on here, at level 6, we have Soul Shackle.
With the reason we went over the exhaustion rules, besides the whole evocation, is because of this mechanic.
Yes. As a reaction, you can use an Eldritch Tether to chain the soul of a recently killed creature within 5 feet to yourself. This creature must have an intelligence of 3 or higher and have been killed within the last 10 minutes. You are able to store a number of souls equal to your Warlock level.
Yes.
While you are storing these souls, the essence of Carbidus gnaws away at your existence, preventing you from sleeping while taking a long rest. This causes your long rest to only restore your spell slots and hit points, and prevents any exhaustion level reduction. Additionally, you must take a DC 10 Constitution saving throw to avoid increasing your exhaustion level by 1. The saving throw's DC increases by 1 for each day that the Warlock makes the save.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with this exhaustion? Or risk of exhaustion,
It is a risk of exhaustion, yep.
You can devour these bound souls to produce a variety of effects. You can devour 2 souls to cast a known cantrip as a bonus action. Cannot be used if you cast another cantrip this turn, as is rules.
Can't cast 2 cantrips in the same turn.
You can devour 5 souls as a bonus action to reduce your exhaustion level by 1. Okay, so this is where you can find some ways to cut back exhaustion without having to long rest.
That's right.
For 6 souls being devoured, as a bonus action, you can regain a spell slot.
Yes.
And then if you devour 10 souls as a bonus action, you can regain the use of an Arcanum, which would be your 6, 7, 8, 9 level spells.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we have some very interesting options here.
Shenanigans. Next up at level 10, we have Devouring Cascade. You can cast the following spells as an action by gaining a level of exhaustion. Dimension Door, Mass Cure Wounds, or Sending. Some extra spells you're casting without having to use spell slot on, but you do gain exhaustion. So, again, this is all. If It's very weird because you're playing around that exhaustion mechanic. It's like it's odd, but you got options.
Yeah, essentially, if you have 5 souls on standby, you could cast it for free and then just immediately remove the exhaustion.
That's right.
So,
and finally, the capstone 14, we have Sacrifice Soul. Once per short rest, you may force a target to make a Wisdom saving throw against your spellcasting DC. If your target is already charmed by you, they have disadvantage on the saving throw. On a failure, they become paralyzed and can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of their turns. Oh, okay. If the creature remains paralyzed at the end of the 5th turn, Charybdis consumes their soul, killing them instantly.
Which, to me, would be long overdue if you haven't killed something 5 turns of being paralyzed anyway.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, if your whole party is wailing on something for 5 turns of them being paralyzed, I sure hope they're...
Think about it this way. If something has a bad enough wisdom that it's failing that save that many times in a row, you've killed it already.
Oh, absolutely.
One way or
the other. If that thing is still alive, and you better hope that 5th turn it gets
I guess
murdered.
if you know that, though, maybe if you're fighting some Cyclops or something, some big old fat Cyclops, he's like CR10, he's got, he rolls a wisdom, you're like, DM's like 2, you're like, what if we just don't worry about the big dumb idiot?
Completely avoid.
And it's like, because in 5 turns, if he doesn't, he dead anyway.
Right. That's true. That's true.
So because you know the mechanic, it's kind of like a whole person. Instead of hitting them, you're just like, we're just gonna let him die, and then we will go focus on everything else.
Right. That's true.
So because no other paralyzed spells and things like that don't have the back end. Like if they don't save this in 5 tries,
right.
They just did.
Right.
That's not normal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, those are all the abilities. So now I move on into the rating portion of the video. First up is the roleplay value, asterisk as always. We're talking about roleplay value, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background, that's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those roleplay scenarios.
Bingo.
So, looking at these on here, you get some solid options for RP spells with Command, Dominate Person, for example. The only thing on here, of course, is your Warlock, and they're not given to you for free, so you have to specifically choose those. That being said...
That's sore subject. That's sore spot.
To be fair, Command and Dominate Person are solid spells to have.
Yes.
Terrifying Aura has some niche use and possibly hilarious effects as well, depending on circumstances, because hostile is a very broad term.
Yes.
Someone could just be irritated with you at a bar or something, and they come to run up to you, and then they just immediately turn around and scream and start running the other direction.
He took an aggressive step at me. Oh, you know that was aggressive. Like, that'd be the kind of questions you're asking your DMs, like, how aggressive did he approach me?
Would you say he's being hostile?
Gosh.
That's a huge thing, if I ever...
You have a thesaurus sitting right here. You're like, just other words for hostile.
Yeah.
Was he being aggressive? Would you say, did he forceful? Just sitting there reading off other words.
Yes, for sure.
Gosh.
So, some potential with that for sure. Hallucinatory Magic acts as a subtle spell, so that could definitely come into play and help you keep a low profile.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to cast a spell to influence a situation, and other people notice you casting a spell... Yeah. It can kind of blow your cover, so having the ability to cast it subtly...
Yeah, especially if you do like
a Dominate Person subtle would be huge.
Yeah, that...
you dominate somebody.
Because they don't know that you've dominated... Nobody else knows you dominated this person.
Right, exactly. So
what's the other thing I'm thinking of? Like... disguise self. There we go. If you could disguise yourself as something else, and then you're messing with other people, and they don't know it. Well, they don't know who messed with them. It's not somebody they don't even recognize the person. You come back by later, and they're still
So you can do some shenanigans for sure with that. And then Devouring Cascade to get Sending or Dimension Door for utility when you need them is really nice to have. That option just to pull those spells out of nowhere if you really need them.
Yes.
So all that being said, we gave it a 3 on the RP. I think part of the issue comes in, too, where if you get that level of exhaustion, you're hitting that disadvantage on ability checks. So you have to keep that in mind as well when you're doing these things. But you have lots of options for your RP.
Yes. On to the combat side of things. It's just... Fart, it's weird.
Yeah, this was a weird one.
Because, okay, my favorite thing about the hallucinatory magic, no question besides the flavor of it, is it's a big middle finger to counterspell. Because if you're casting it on creature A and creature B has counterspell, he has no idea that you cast a spell.
Right.
There's no idea. Because you're playing with Homeboy's mind over here. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. The only thing is, if the thing you're targeting has counterspell,
well, sure, but you might wait to see happen. If somebody else casts a spell on them and they cast it, you're like, oh, counterspell. Not you though.
Right.
So there's ways around it. And of course, Soul Shackle. Okay, you're playing with Exhaustion, so keep in mind when you get to 2, you're affecting your combat. Because 1 doesn't affect your combat. It's ability checks.
Right.
But 2, you're cutting your movement speed in half. You're still usable because you are a caster, so you can still Eldritch Blast stuff, cast your other spells that have range.
Right. Fine. And you do have the aura to protect you if someone comes up on you.
Also, yes. But once you get to 3, when your attack rolls and saving throws start getting affected, now you're talking about your chance to hit with your Eldritch Blast and your single target damaging spells, and your ability to survive incoming effects of AoE variety, both spell and physical, all that kind of stuff. So it's important to pay attention to how that's going to hit and play around, things like that.
Right.
But you do get to do some really, really cool, interesting effects with those souls that you have. Casting cantrips is bonus action, great. So you can, throw a big spell, your main spell of this, and bonus action throw a cantrip if you want to just throw 2 in there.
Yep.
But devouring 5 to get exhaustion down by 1, I think, James, is like if you immediately get 5 in the pocket as quickly as you can for when you need it is very important. 6, letting you regain a spell slot is good, and then 10, if you happen to get there, you then you're recasting level 7, 8, or even 9 spells twice in a day.
Yeah, that's huge.
Oh my
being able to
goodness.
cast a 9th level spell twice, that's big. That's big.
That's big, but that's why the cost and the risk is so high.
Right.
Because with exhaustion and penalties you may pay for that, because you can do some really stupid shenanigans.
Right.
And then Dimension Door is a great get out of trouble spell, or covering a gap you really need to cover, whatever gets you and a friend out of trouble. It costs you a level of exhaustion, but it's an emergency button. If you needed it, you could press it.
Right.
And Mass Cure Wounds, if you've only got one other person who can cast healing spells in your party, you've got like a druid, you've got or a cleric, and they're down, or they're running real low on spell slots.
Right.
You're like, okay, I'll take a level of exhaustion, because maybe you don't have any, you've only got one.
Yep.
You're like, okay, it's worth to take the one, give everybody some health, try to keep us through, this little bit here, or whatever. You've got some choices.
Right.
And of course, Sacrifice Soul. Yep. You can. It's once per short rest, mind you. So it's and you're a warlock, so you're already kind of like, hey guys, can we short rest? Yeah, can we short rest? Okay. So the chance you're gonna get to paralyze somebody, which you can then abuse the crap out of them for being paralyzed, and of course on the off chance that either A, like Jameson said, they're not already dead, or you do my strategy, you're like, you know what? They've rolled less than 5 on their first 2 saves. Let's just maybe let them die, because it will instantly kill whatever they fail at. To the score side of things, before I get too far down any other rabbit hole, we went with a 4 out of a possible 5. And the biggest problem, I think, to me from this, well, there's 2 problems. 1, you're a warlock.
Yes.
And you're very limited to your number of spells you get.
Absolutely.
However, this does address the biggest problem warlocks have, the number of spell slots, by giving you ways to get them back, both through getting a Mystic Arcanum back, getting regular spell slots back. And if you happen to take the new Pact with the new evocations that come in this book,
free spell and the option to gain all your spells back.
I feel like you should, because it themes really well with this subclass, because you get the exhaustion, you have ways to get rid of it.
Yep.
The penalty is so large. If you don't maintain and manage your levels of exhaustion, you will start feeling your costs in a hurry.
Right.
So this is the prime example of not glass cannon, but like really give and take. Like, it is the quintessential warlock. Yeah, there's your word of the day. Quintessential of what a warlock is. Which would make sense when we get over to the synergy side of things.
Absolutely.
Saying this is the quintessential warlock.
So, all that being said, there is a lot of internal synergy with this, with your soul consumption. And another thing to keep in mind here, too, is Soul Shackle, as long as the creature's been dead within 10 minutes, and you just walk up to it, use your reaction to steal the soul. So you could still steal souls or absorb souls, however you gain the souls, however you want to say it. You gain them as a reaction, which means you can still do it in combat and still be able to. You could use a bonus action to get a mana spell. You could say you have 5 souls right now. Something just died. You run over to it, use your reaction to absorb the soul. You have 6. You bonus action, gain a spell slot back, and then action, cast a spell.
You can.
That is cool. That is very cool.
And then with the same math, you bonus action or reaction, get the soul, and then you can bonus action reduce your exhaustion by 1.
There you go.
And then turn around and cast Mass Cure Wounds.
Yeah, right. Yep.
There's some really cool little combos by
yes.
by
you gotta think a little bit about timing stuff and movement and all that, which is really interesting.
This is definitely one of those that you've got to be a sharp player to really maximize what this is, because you've got to weigh your cost
playing with that stuff.
Yeah.
Too. And then the defensive aura is really going to help you survive. It's going to prevent stuff from getting up in your space, or at least make it very...
they're not going to enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah. Social distance.
And then just being able to get regain a spell slot out of nowhere, it could be absolutely massive when you really need it for that clutch moment. Mm-hmm. Capstone makes everyone happy, because who doesn't love a crazy paralyzed condition? And it's only... a short rest to get it back, so you can do it all the time. And then dependent on stacking and holding souls is really your primary setback. But after looking through a lot of it, because when I read through this, I'm like, okay, how many creatures have an intelligence of 3 or greater? There are
a lot.
Actually, I was surprised at how many creatures actually have a 3 intelligence that have 0 CR. Like 0, not even 1/8. 0. Cats have 3. Foxes. There's a bunch of different random creatures that I almost made a joke to Alex when we were talking about this. Is your background, you could be like an exterminator or like pest control. So because you're just like going around like you just really hate cats. That could be like your
flaw. Cat's been eating all my food.
Your character flaw could be you really hate cats. And every time you see a cat, you just have to suck its soul. You know what I mean? Like, hey
man, what you do is you go down to the fish market, you make you some friends, and there's some stray cats that have been eating the product up, and you be like, let me take care of that problem for you, little boy.
So there's ways you can work with your DM, and even just going out hunting on a regular basis, you can stack up souls. And if you have something like Resilient, where you take proficiency with con saves, and get that as a feat somewhere along the lines as you're leveling up, that's going to really help you maintain and not have to worry so much about that extra level of exhaustion you're going to get per day. Because you're going to have a pretty good chance to make those saves as well. So it's definitely super interesting, and it addresses to me, which is the biggest flaw of being a warlock, which is your spell slots. You do get lots of ways to restore spell slots, but there is a cost. So we went with a 4 out of 5 in the synergy department as well. This is definitely one of my favorite subclasses I think we reviewed, just because it's so different. And I always love subclasses that use features that are never touched. Stuff that uses or plays with exhaustion, stuff that plays with your hit die, which we did a Velda's video not too long ago that dealt with that. I can't remember which one it was. Remind me in the comments down below. We've done so many reviews recently. It's hard to keep track of which ones. Oh, there's so many. But anything that uses mechanics that are in 5th edition that rarely ever get addressed. I love stuff that uses and takes advantage of those things that we hardly ever get to see.
And I love things that give you choices. So again, with your Soul Shackle, you've got 4 different ways to spend your souls. Great. And at varying levels of cost, 2, 5, 6, 10. And all of them are letting you do something that a warlock really wants to do.
Got some great stuff on here. So big fans of this one. Very unique for sure. This is the 4th and final of the Auroboros subclasses. Please let us know down below your thoughts on this book. There's other stuff in here, some character options and stuff. If you are interested, please let us know down below so if we can cover it if you want. There's also some mechanics with the marking, which you can tap into for extra strengths at a benefit. and then also it has flaws or cons attached to it as well. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff from this Auroboros book, please let us know so we can know if we want to cover it or not. If there's enough interest, we'll cover it. If you guys don't care, we'll move on to something else. No big deal. So let us know. Thank you again to our sponsors, Hit Point Press. Make sure you check out their Fable Makers.
It's down there somewhere.
Yes. Click the links or whatever. The description is down below.
Push the button.
That's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, see when our new stuff is coming out. And as always, thanks for watching.